Hello.
Mhm.
So we're reading
Mhm.
Isaiah 53. Mother had suggested, so we went.
Yes, thank
Um,
you. Yes,
so Isaiah, who is Isaiah?
he's a prophet in the Old Testament, and he has many prophets. I mean, some of his messages is warning Israel about their sin, but then there's also in 53, there's a lot about prophecy about Jesus. And it seems like he has a lot of prophecy about the days to come and Jesus coming back and pretty much
Okay. So
anything
like
in the future for him.
God God was speaking to him through like
Exactly.
visions and whatnot in his dreams and his actions.
Yes, exactly. And in the verse 1 Isaiah, the vision of Isaiah the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uriah, Jotham, Asa, Hezekiah, king of Judah. So he was around for a long time. And it does say the vision. And then he told the people and told us, because here we are listening.
Right, exactly. And is there so it's Jerusalem is around as a time
Yes. Yeah, this is like
after
one of the
Exodus.
kings, like you know how all the kingdom, like David and Solomon, and then the other guys are like their ancestors, so a few generations after them.
Okay. So definitely
But
some time.
yes, but
Well,
still it's split in two in the Judah and which
this
is
is all
more following
it's definitely it's towards the end of the New Testament.
of the Old Testament.
Or
You mean?
yeah, it's at the end of the
Yes,
Old Testament. So it's
yes,
getting towards like
it's
they're
getting
kind of
towards
like bringing in a new age,
getting there.
which
Yes,
like the prophets and they're spreading the word to get everybody ready.
and it's before they went into captivity, so there's a lot of warning about that too, and prophecy
Okay.
about it too.
Right.
In it. So,
Hmm.
but it's still it could be a few generations, so there's still time in that regard. But there is stuff happening. So, okay, and then this 53 is definitely about Jesus. When you read it, it's hard to not see Jesus. I feel like.
Right.
Let's
It's
see
yeah.
what you. Yeah,
Okay. So we're reading 53.
53.
Okay. All right. All right, let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
Who had believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? So, like, who has figured out that he's here?
Maybe.
To whom the
Right, I
arm,
know.
like, who
Yeah.
sees it?
The
Uh,
strength, the arm, sometimes the arm is like the strength of the Lord.
the arm of the Lord could be meant like spiritually, as in like, in like divine intervention, and like you'll be walking down the street and you'll be crossing the road, and then there'll be the car speeding by, and you'll like
Oh,
take a step back, but you don't know why. And they're like, that's divine intervention. So I think like the arm of the Lord is like the Lord works in like the shadows and mysterious ways, and like you can't really see the full vision of what he's trying to do.
oh.
But if you
And
look close
protection.
enough, if you look, well, yeah, protection is a part of it. But if you look close enough at like what's going on around you, you can start to see where like things don't quite add up, and there's like a divine aspect to it that you,
Yeah,
you see
right.
it enough, you see it happen so many times.
And you're like,
And
yeah,
yeah, so
yes,
that
exactly.
maybe that's what
Yay.
the arm of the Lord means.
Wow, that's cool.
Who We'll find out. This is
Yes.
going to be peer reviewed. All right, so
Yay.
verse 2.
All right.
For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He has no form or comeliness, and when he sees him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. he was despised, and we did not esteem him. Oh, girl, can I tell you something? I put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Put yourself in Jesus's shoes and understand that he did not live a good life. He lived a very similar life that like the immigrants that are in the United States right now are leading. He was like outwardly persecuted for like the things that he was saying, the beliefs that he held. And like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, how conscious of a relationship would he have had with God at the time? Was it like, like an open conversation like you see sometimes? Or was it more like Noah, where it was probably like random, conversations that he had with him? But most of Noah's time, at least I think, was spent with himself, with no dialogue with God, just doing what he thought was right. And I think a lot of the time, you know, there
Mm.
was the one time in the temple where all the tax collectors, and he threw all the tables. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes, Jesus, yes.
And like, at least how that was first explained to me was that like he wasn't supposed to react that way. Not that his intentions behind the action were wrong, because what they were doing in the temple was incorrect, and they weren't supposed to be there by law. Question mark, can you confirm that for me? It was
Um,
like a law
yes,
that they weren't supposed to be there, which is why he got so, worked up about it.
and I think they were over. I
Or
mean,
they
there
were
was
just being immoral.
some greed, like they were over.
They're being greedy. Okay,
I
so it
think
wasn't a
so.
law.
I'm not 100% sure if they were breaking a law too. There could have been. That's a really good question.
But even knowing that, it does truly put into perspective that Jesus had just as much opportunity to sin as the rest of us. And if the
Oh,
40 days in the desert don't tell you that, where you're pretty much shown that the devil had an open dialogue for 40 days to try and get Jesus to sin.
so he had the opportunity. You're saying that,
Jesus was subjected to everything that we were and more.
mm, right, right.
And like to use the words of Jesus, I think you need to put yourself in the shoes thereof a little more and realize that like he was a great person and he was given the worst from most people until he found the good in other people. Who knows? Like there's such little recorded about it that we could talk about it forever because you don't know. Because
There's a lot.
like I think he went to Egypt as a child
Well, he was
and like learned there.
I mean, they had to flee to Egypt after Herod was killing the babies in Bethlehem. With
Right,
some,
who's to know? Like I'm sure there had to be because the things that he did as an adult, just in his like 20s, he had to be doing stuff like that as a child, just unknowingly and unwittingly, not understanding, or maybe he had full understanding at that point. I don't know. He's probably a pretty good kid.
right.
But like,
Uh,
he's still a human. He still had to grow. He still had to learn his own way.
and
Like
then,
obviously he probably had to think about it a lot less because he probably had a lot more faith.
yes, I would think so.
So he was probably able to do more things because I think it takes a lot of us, it takes a lot of time to like foster the faith.
Oh, yeah. Us, you mean, yes. Like we're
And
growing that faith.
right. Whereas if like you were to be born with it and know from the day that you're born that like you know what you're here for, like you're good after like
Right. You know you're the son of God. Like
and
he knew.
like in the book of Enoch it talks about like Noah knew from birth in secret from God what his purpose was.
Okay.
And then it wasn't God that told him, it was an angel, but nonetheless he knew, maybe not consciously, which is where it comes into like the actions that you see in the Bible, but subconsciously he never lost faith.
Hmm. I mean, in
And
the Bible, it does imply that God is speaking to him, doesn't it? Showing him the directions, what to go for wood and the
right.
design.
And then you have to think about like God's time and our time as well. Like things take time to happen in the real world. But
Yes, yes,
like,
yes. Time is different for God. I am,
but you talk about like addiction and self-gratification and like that time between the prayer and whenever is where most people fail.
in the
And it's
waiting,
it's
in the
because they don't have like the discipline or they're not willing to sacrifice or they're not willing to go through the pain of getting whatever they're asking for. And
well,
to know a
well,
lot of the time that like you're gonna suffer either way, just keep going. Don't give up. That's the end of the message, right? It's like just don't give up. Whatever shitty thing you're going through, it's like if you just stop doing it, it's still gonna be shitty. But it's gonna be shitty because you're not doing anything. So just keep doing it.
just keep fighting through it.
Yeah. But look, put yourself in his shoes. Really think about like his life. Think about you having to pick up a cross as an entire race of people is against you. Because like,
Your own people, in a way. Yeah.
yeah, go carry 100-pound log on your back through like downtown Albany and see, just how
Mm.
people look at you. You could be regular clothes. You don't even have to have the thorns, the crown of thorns, or any of it. You don't have to get flogged. You don't have to do nothing. Just carry a log on your back through downtown Albany and see how you feel.
Wow. Wow.
Who knows? You don't have to do that, but you can do that in your
Right, right.
mind.
I understand. Yeah, no, but people would be looking and yes.
Yeah. Okay. Where were we? Do you have anything to
Eh,
offer? How did you feel about that?
Oh no, that's good. Yes, and then we're verse that was right, and it said in the verse too, like he had no form of comeliness, no beauty, like he didn't stand out as a movie star or anything. Like he was
Right.
just
There
a
was
regular person.
on the outside, there was nothing special.
Right.
There was nothing that he was trying to prove. At the end of the day, he was himself. And that's at the end of the day what we should strive to be.
Yeah.
But
And
just gotta
I
make
mean,
sure.
yeah, he did talk about later, like in John 17 and stuff, he talked about like that he did the things because his father told him, like he was obedient to God. And but to the people, like he didn't care what people taught in that regard, only that he was obedient and doing what he was
Right.
supposed to do, his mission. He was doing his mission.
Yeah. And you see, like, because I see people sin, but like sometimes people gotta do morally questionable things. And like sometimes you gotta figure out how to like justify it. But
Well, we're pretty good at justifying ourselves.
it's like the way you think
Yeah.
about it. Because like I tend to go off of like good and bad as a moral compass. And it's not always the correct way to look at things because not everything is just objectively good and bad. There's two parties to every side. So, if you're taking
Right.
something away from somebody else and you're not giving them something to like replace that, you're still doing them an injustice. You're still stealing from them. It doesn't matter if it's physical or mental. It's the same concept. But
Mm,
you should be thinking about that. So if you do have to take from somebody, you better make sure that they have at least or more than they, had to begin with.
if you
So at
actually,
the end of the day, but that I think is more along the concept of like karma. Whereas like your actions put out a certain like energy into the world, and whatever energy you put out is what's being received back to you. So like, yeah, you could have to go steal to feed your family, but like if you're also like helping people and doing good stuff along the way, as far as the universe is concerned, you're in the green. Because like, yeah, you had to steal to feed your family and you had to do a good thing. But like if you think about it also like a scale, like your one injustice is outweighed by the good deeds that you do. And this is like in the moment. Because
right, this is your,
if you're just constantly doing misdeeds, it doesn't matter how much good stuff you do.
right.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's
you're just talking
you're
about
not
love, not like salvation or.
yeah, you're not
Mhm.
taking it and using it like we talked previously about. You're not taking it and using it for like a perverted purpose. You're not perverting the meaning of what you're doing. So like if I'm just stealing bread to go sell to people again, that's morally wrong. But if I'm stealing bread to feed my family, I don't know.
There's different, I got you.
We
Wow,
think, and there are laws, but there's also gray areas in the laws. There's a reason that we have judges to interpret the laws.
they can look at the situation.
Right, exactly. So they can look into circumstances and what led up to it.
Mm.
All right.
Verse 4.
Verse 4.
Wait, yeah.
Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, and the chastisement for our peace was upon him. And all his stripes we are healed.
By
And
his,
all and we all like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And the Lord has lain on him the iniquity of us all. And this is, I think, a part of it too, right? So like what I was trying to get at before, like, and by his stripes we are healed. What do you think that really means?
wait,
I think it means that like God got whipped on the cross
or right before the cross, maybe, but at that
and
same time, yeah.
he had to go through trials and tribulations to be, to fulfill his purpose on earth for God. So I think to a certain degree, we are expected to do the same and conduct ourselves as Jesus would. Not to say we're getting physically whipped. We're not
Right.
saying that. But like by his stripes, like by his trials and tribulations, we are healed. The things that he had to go through in his life, those days, where you're running from the law and doing your thing. But like whatever he was going through at the time, those are the things that we're healed by. It's not just the one final action, it was his entire life.
You're saying it like I had
Because
understood it as the when the whip, so the stripes on his back.
when you, or at least when I understand it as a finite moment of like just the moment of him being on the cross is that is what's taking my, sins and is giving me salvation. It's too brief of a time to bring it into your life and to have it have like a lasting effect. Whereas if I thought about it as in like the years and years and years and years that Jesus spent going around and telling people and learning and, just growing as a person, like that's the journey that we are on as well. We're on the
Mhm.
same journey that he was, and we have the same choices. We have the same temptations, and they're all there just as they were 2000 years ago. It's the same stuff.
Mm, Life is similar for sure, right? We mess up, etc., you know?
Yeah, and then it goes because then in verse 6, all we like sheep talking about us have gone
Yeah,
astray, which this is most likely referring to the people at the time, but
right. But
it's
so,
no more relevant than it is today because like, yeah, we all do our own thing. And then there are communities out there and people that do things, say the correct way, but like the correct way to build the community they do. Um, so I think we've lost that to like build communities. Because you go around to churches now, and I'm sure there's less people than ever attending on a regular basis at most churches. Average, I don't know.
yeah,
But I'm sure you look at attendance. It might be on the rise again. I mean, COVID's a little bit out there, but hopefully we can get back to it. I know it's not
right.
I tend to have a pessimistic look at it, but it's, you know,
Mm.
it can always get better.
The seeking God is important wherever
Right.
you
Because at the end of the day, it is a journey.
are.
It'll be okay. Oh,
Mm.
all right. Did you want to
He's
finish
good.
this?
Oh, if you want to.
Okay, we'll get through 53 and then I got lost a while.
Oh, yes.
He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. That's a big thing right there.
Yes, that's
Is
hard.
that people did do him injustices and they hurt him and they did that, but he didn't say anything.
Right.
And sometimes, and
It's really
in
hard now.
in the famous words of Justin Timberlake and whoever else was in that song, sometimes it's just better to say nothing. I want to link that song, but
Yes,
like,
I understand. It's better to say nothing. Yes.
yeah, it's just sometimes it's just better to say nothing.
My mom used to say, less said, less to mend, less meant.
Right.
Or,
Exactly.
yes.
He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearer, it is silent. So he opened not his mouth. So I think he's referring to like when you shear a sheep. I don't know if you ever watched a video, but like they are very quiet,
Right. Because I
at
know
least for
some.
some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he's saying, like he just kind of like, and to a certain degree, I've kind of seen this in the stories, and I will do this in my own life. But like, if you can see people's intention before they realize you do, and you let people do what they think they want to do, you'll see people's real intentions. And you'll see that sometimes they're really, really like not the person that they claim to be. So that's, and to a certain extent, I think this is kind of what that does is like, it doesn't do it for Jesus and it doesn't do it at the time, but like when that person dies and you get judged for your actions, that's when that comes up. So yeah, you might not have to worry about it now, but like if we are being judged at the end of this, that's something you would be judged for, in my
Yes.
opinion, of course.
Okay.
But
Well,
uh he was
eight.
taken, yeah, he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who will declare his generation? For he was cut off from the land of the living, for the transgressions of my people he was stricken. And they made him his grave with the wicked, but with the rich and his death, because he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. And he shall see the labor of his soul and be satisfied by his knowledge. My righteous servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bore the sins of many, and made intercession for the transgressors.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
So this is an interesting concept too, because I think as a kid I thought this too. Like that God was always like a little bit mean. And that maybe to a certain extent he did like to see us go through like challenges. Not necessarily bad things that would just happen, but challenges that would like make us grow.
Okay. Yeah.
And sometimes I've definitely gotten lost when like bad things have happened. And when you get lost in the bad things, you lose the ability to like learn a lesson, at least for a short portion of time if you don't come out of it.
Right.
And then you get lost in the bad things. But every
Yeah.
single thing that happens to us can be a good thing. Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
You can turn it into a good thing. And
Right.
that is the creative power of God, is being able to make anything out of nothing. And that should technically be the power that was bestowed to us, and the
Yes.
knowledge that we learned was the power of creation.
Mm.
Just something to think about.
I understand. Wow.
But while you ponder this, peace be with you.